Hello, my darlings. You're listening to Ink Medicine Podcast, part two of my conversation with Sarah Sun of Sun Medicine of Balm Tattooing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I believe this part of the conversation's a little bit lighter, but I'm still going to put a trigger warning on it. I'm speaking with a tattooer who works in a grief and trauma survivor informed way. There may be mentions of domestic violence and other types of trauma. Nothing graphic, though. Please enjoy.
Yeah, which I don't know. That feels nice.
Speaking of pictures and sticking out asses, like, what's your relationship with social media? And like, as somebody who basically has to use it and probably also resents having to use it, like, tell me how you feel about it.
I mean, it's the only like social media that I have is Instagram. I feel like something like, I don't even know what else is out there right now, but like, I don't do anything like Facebook or something. Like I have a marketplace
TikTok
or something. Oh yeah, I guess, but I don't post anything, like just my kid might want to watch or something like that. Yeah. It's fine. Like some of that stuff is super, super interesting. I learn a lot of stuff. I think it's fantastic that scientists are on there being like, you're going to learn today, or like a fucking, I don't know, neuroscientists are like, hey, let's learn about the brain through this like cool TikTok. I'm like, that's how I will retain information. So that's fucking amazing.
Oh yeah, totally.
But it feels, I besides like think word of mouth, and maybe a few other things, right? Like I'm working right now with a shelter who reached out and was like, hey, saw your stuff and saw you gave a talk one time. And, would you be able to willing to like work with clients to do like somewhat small cover-ups, and can you connect with other artists, to do so, whatever. So like that feels kind of nice in terms of the ways that people can find me, like, right. So like some shelters know about me or the YWCA or whatever, and people can refer their clients that way. And I have a sliding scale that I can offer like a number of times a month. There's no questions asked. You just say that you need it. I know that I can do it based on how much I need to make ends meet at the house and at the shop. I know I can usually do that like 4 or 5 times a month.
That's so amazing. I saw that on your website that you have people also donate to help with that cause, and you do that.
Well, I did not. I felt weird about doing that, but I had enough people, especially an old boss of mine. She was super amazing. And she was like, listen, like, even if you think about it in terms of like, you can donate your time, but she's like, tattoo supplies have gone up so much, like let people at least donate. I was like, no, there's so much to donate to. So sometimes I'll post a little like, hey, there were, like 12 people in the last like 6 months or something that like access the sliding scale. I don't give any information about folks, never. And again, it's not my business. Like I've had too much time in life where I've had to fill out my own fucking paperwork we just got, lost our food stamps and got turned down a fucking again because I didn't turn in something from my older kids' work or something, some of that to apply for a scholarship is a why. Like some of it feels so like dehumanizing and demoralizing, and that's none of my business. If someone feels like they need it, they need it. I've had tattooers who are like, oh, people are going to take advantage of you. I'm like, well, I guess it is what it is then, like whatever. So, if folks I just tell people like, well, this would be like the cost of the tattoo, but you can pay $0 up to that amount. It's not my business. It's whatever, works for you. And I've had people give me feedback about like how they can give me money, so it's not awkward in that time. But so, anyways, so like folks from the Y or whomever like can reach out for things. But
wait. So how would it not be awkward? Tell me that piece.
Oh, well, like I've had it before where I was just sort of standing there and someone was like, oh, can you like, if they did want to give some, because the majority of time people aren't paying anything, or maybe $20. And again, that's fine. But if I hand them like my phone and I'm like, oh, here, you can like tap your card onto this or something like that, and an automatic thing pops up about like tipping. And then they're standing in front of me and they're like, if you could, it would be really nice for you to just like walk away while I'm doing this. Or if I can like just leave cash like at the booth and like then we walk out and you don't have to pay attention to that, like, because I've had people that were like, I feel kind of embarrassed about this, and I'm like, oh, like I totally get that, so whatever way I can make that easier for folks without folks feeling shamed. I mean, I can say that all the time, like it really is okay, you can pay $0 if that works for you, but
Yeah. No, it's like that just money piece in general, like
mhm,
whatever, they're paying or not paying, like,
mhm.
because I also do sliding scale work too. And
Hmm,
usually with that, I
that's
have an
awesome.
agreed upon amount, like, instead of like, so the Bay Area prices are really different, right?
Oh
So
yeah, for
like the
sure.
standard here is 200 and up an hour. I
Yeah.
charge 250 an hour. So
Hmm.
I'll do sliding scale for people who have some means from
Hmm.
$100 an hour to whatever they want. Or,
Hmm.
sometimes it's less than that. It's $100 a session or whatever.
Hmm.
Just depends on like the amount of work and what kind of work and who it is and all that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but so usually it's agreed upon before. But when I have done like, give me whatever you want,
Yeah.
yes, that's awkward. But also
Yeah.
just charging anything is awkward. Even if
Oh,
I'm charging
absolutely.
them my
Oh my
rate
god.
that they know I'm about to charge them, when I say it's going to be
Oh
$300
my
and I
god.
hand them my phone, it's still awkward. And my space is small. So I try to
Yeah.
like wander away, do something
Yeah.
else. But then I feel like I'm looking like a little wild because I'm like moving a piece of paper over, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, like, it fucks also with just like your sense of like, oh man, I don't want to conflate too many things, but just like one of my coworkers has a sign in her booth and it says something like, my prices are based on my talent, not your budget. And well, like, because I know her, like I totally understand like the sentiment of that. And I think that's bad as hell, right? Because she's like, look, I have this skill set. And I think specifically she specializes in like American traditional, and she has her own style of that. And she's fucking awesome at what she does. You would think that she's had tons of trauma training. She's just like great with people and, whatever else. And I am like, 150 an hour, oh no, you know what, actually maybe 100 is fine. I'm like, that's so fucked
Yeah.
up, because
Yeah.
I'm worried that people don't have the means, and I don't want to ask them these questions, but I'm also like, it's just a little thing and it's pretty simple, which is not valuing myself, right?
Yeah.
So
No, like it's like,
I'm working on it.
are you like hurting yourself in order to take care of somebody else, right? And as a two,
Absolutely.
it's a trap we fall into
Yes.
by life, like by existing. So,
Hmm.
it's something that I try to watch with clients. It's something I try to watch with my partner. Like it's something I try to
Yeah.
watch with, you know, really in any situation,
Yeah.
because yeah, I would tend to overdo and overgive and then get resentful,
Yeah.
and feel like
Hmm.
exhausted by
Oh yeah,
by
no,
that.
no, no. I don't know that I always have a great balance of that. Like every year it gets a little bit better, and sometimes it's feedback, and sometimes it's practicality. Sometimes I'll have to pause and say, I can't do sliding scale for the next few months. Like,
Mhm.
sorry. And if people want to wait, that's cool. And if not, then that's okay too. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever have the greatest balance of that. But I do barely try. Um, and I will continue to barely try to do better for myself in terms of like my own boundaries and like understanding and kind of, I don't know what the word is, but just like, where you kind of like honor and appreciate your own self and not try to like cut yourself short, whatever. So
Mhm.
that, I mean, it doesn't do
Yeah.
anybody any favors. And then who am I showing that to? That's just weird, right? I don't know, but
I recommend that you listen to my Instagram friends, Maestro and the Mike. They have a podcast about marketing. They're kind of an
okay.
Instagram marketing coach, not kind of.
Oh
They are an
gosh.
Instagram marketing coach.
Okay.
They're super cool, queer human, and they did an episode on boundaries on Monday that I thought was
Mm.
really good. And
Oh, cool.
it's pretty simple, but I like. There's a few key phrases they say that I was like, bingo,
Mm.
And I think
Yeah, I
I
want to
think it's
listen to
a
that then.
yeah,
I think that'll
yeah.
be helpful, because I do think that there are like compassionate ways to say things, right? Like, and you don't have to always bend over backwards for people. Sometimes things just need to be fucking clear,
Yeah.
right? But I
And as
think yeah.
and the other, well, just the last thing on that boundaries thing, in my business meeting this week, one of
Mm.
my business mates quoted somebody else who says, "No is a complete sentence."
Oh yes, no, but yes,
Yes, yes,
yes, right?
yes.
Oh,
I
I
believe it
love.
was Jane Fonda who said that. The other person
Come
I was
on,
listening to
Jane.
podcast. Jane Fonda, she's the shit. She's such a boss.
Listen, listen, that's amazing. I could see her hair feathering, flowing in the breeze, saying that. No, it's a complete sentence, like
Right?
70s like roller skates everywhere. Like, fuck yeah.
So amazing.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. Social media, like, no, I feel like I end up being on like Instagram like too much. And then I notice I'm like, I feel terrible about myself. Terrible all the time. Like I try to remind myself, like, nope, don't compare. This is silly, whatever. And sometimes there are like joyous things like if I do like ever look at TikTok or something with my kids, again, I don't post anything on there, but like that's a little easier for me to detach from because I'm like, I don't participate in it. It's not, I don't have any stake in it. Sometimes it's just fun and I can completely remove myself, but I can't. I have a page for like death and grief care called Love Letters Death Care. And I hardly ever use it. Right. I'm like, I can't, it's too much to keep track of and it feels like really impersonal and whatever. And I don't know. I don't know how to stay on top of things. Right. There are days when I'm just like, I'm walking out of there and I'll figure out how people can connect with me. But then when I remember that I have to check my emails, well, then
well,
back to Instagram.
That's something else that Maestro talks about. So I recommend it for that reason.
Okay.
Too. And they essentially say, set up your life in the way that works for you. Don't do it the way that works for other people, that people think you should have, the way people think they should have access to you.
Yeah.
But how do people how do people usually get to you to get work by you? Do they email you, message you, DM you? Do you let them text you? Like, how do you?
Well, I mean, if we're already friends, like I am still at the point of saying like, yeah, you can text me, whatever. I do like, it's a little hard to keep up with DMs, especially because sometimes I don't understand the folders in Instagram, right? Like there'll be things that fall into some like hidden request folder. Then recently it changed, like it was showing everything all at once and old messages show up and I just get confused about that shit. So what I've been saying, and I don't know that this is the best way, but just because things, especially during pandemic, got really, really busy and I didn't know how to keep up on things. And I get very confused about emails. It's really hard for me to respond and I get really overwhelmed. We don't have like a counter person or anything. I try to.
Do people wander into the shop?
Almost never. I mean, we put by appointment only on there. We did have a couple of people this week, but we don't, it is appointment only, right? So we don't do walk-ins. And I think our schedules just don't, accommodate that. And I like to be able to like prepare things ahead of time. I am an artist who shows people their drawings ahead of time, for better or for worse. It just,
if it works for you that way, that's
most of the time. I mean, sometimes it's like I need to figure out a way to say like no more than three drawing corrections because what the fuck,
Don't forget to charge about $3,000 for that.
Speaking of which, what just you know what? I feel glad that tattooers were like, oh, you want to be roasted? We're gonna roast you now. Like that was just. It was wild. Unbelievable. Know your worth, but like don't take advantage of people. That's some shit, right?
Oh, it's clear this person is not about knowing their worth, just
oh no. Yeah. No, absolutely scamming. Yeah, there was so much that came about that person that I was like, oh, right, whatever. So
it's tragic.
It is. I forget what we were talking about.
Just like the changes and the emailing back and forth.
Oh yeah. I don't. So right now, for better or for worse, I have regular clients that might say like, oh, can I schedule another thing like out in advance and I'll have them booked. And then like throughout the week, then like, let's say the following week or something, I might have like a couple of different openings. It was harder for me to maintain like, especially during pandemic. Well, it's still pandemic, but like, especially during a time when people were like scheduling, canceling, when I'd have things booked out really far, it was so confusing to me, even with the booking, really simple booking system that I use, just like Square, like the basic free one where you can give your link to like current clients and they can book wherever your openings are and you can approve them or whatever. But, so if clients have that booking link, I mean, right now I have it turned off because I was like, no, too much. But if I can set my schedule on there, yes. And I learned that you can make it so people can like pick a spot and it sends you a request. Then I can look at it and make sure that I approve it and I understand what they're messaging, whatever. But every once in a while, someone will give the link to like their friend and their friend will message. I'm like, I don't know who you are and I don't understand what you're talking about. And the thing that you described has nothing to do with the tattoos that I make. Like it's way off topic, whatever. So because people kept like, there'd be so many cancellations of people getting sick and not sure if they had COVID or not. And I totally respect that. but it made so many like rescheduling. So for right now, I just say, look, on Sundays, I'll post on Instagram just because right now it's the easiest way for me to do it. I just post on there and say, hey, here are the openings that I have for the following week. Or the last couple of weeks, I've just been like, no openings, I'm totally booked, or no openings, I need some rest this week, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then
And so does that feel like it fills you up enough doing that every week? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I there's no problems, thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
like getting those filled. And right now also, and I think because I just mentally, there's just been a lot of personal stuff going on too. And I think mentally I needed as much rest as I could have, like from too many customs. In a lot of ways, like I love doing them because people connect to those so much, but it can be hard, especially if folks are just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about stuff and I'm not getting it.
Well, that's why I don't do that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that shit. I don't do that shit for that reason.
Right. And that's another point of like your own healthy boundary, right? Like, right. So there are current clients. I'm like, okay, if you know what it's like to work with me and you know how to like that we communicate back and forth and we do okay with each other, then I don't generally have a problem doing custom work. There will be things that I'm learning slowly to be like, I don't want to do animals. I don't feel like I draw them well. They feel weird. Like it feels weird for me to do it. It doesn't resemble even what I want it to look like, whatever. But a lot of it will just say like, right now it is, any available work that I have. And most of the time, almost always, it's like, they're just one and done. I don't like to repeat things a lot, or I'll make variations of them. Or I'll say like, I can do freehand leaf work because those are a lot easier for me to understand how to draw and translate and follow someone's like body where they want it. I don't feel as confident with like florals and things like that yet. And I just love the way that leaves look and kind of hug and fold with people. I've had people, where they like, I don't know, whatever. They're just like, wrap it around my thigh. I don't like my thigh, or I want this to be here. I had this client come in and she has, I want to say muscular dystrophy. I don't remember, but she's losing a lot of like muscle mass in her legs. She's fucking rad as hell. But she was like, yeah, I hadn't felt very confident about my legs. And so we just like free-handed these like palm leaves from ankle to hip. Oh, and actually up onto the butt a little bit. And she sent me a picture, like, I can't remember how long, maybe a few months afterwards. And she's in like a skirt with like this split and she's like showing her leg. And I was just like, oh, that's amazing. I mean, even if it's just for herself, right? Like that.
Do you have that piece up on Instagram? I'd love to see it.
I wonder if I have it in my healed work. So if I don't have it in my healed work, I'll message her and ask her if she's comfortable, like with me, sharing it, even if I don't tag her face isn't in it or anything like that. Yeah. But so I can do stuff like that. And that to me, I'm like, I'm so in the groove when people come in and they say, I'm like, show me with your hand, just like trace out an area. And they might say like, oh, I want it to wrap from like here to here. I'm like, okay. Any sensitivities to pen or marker? Great. And then just like follow it and draw. And I just tell them like, I'm not offended if this is not your thing. Do you want a wide leaf, a small leaf, whatever? So that's what I've just been doing like week by week. And yep, I've stayed like fully booked. And I feel grateful about that. Thankfully there are repeat clients and sometimes newer folks. And I think I just have to let go of like, I can't stay on top of things. I just looked at an email that I was like, someone sent this to me 3 months ago. And I had been in the middle of responding and then I just stopped. Cool. So I probably come across as like a dick sometimes about that, but I don't know. I'm doing what I can.
That happens too, sometimes for me where I kind of forget. I actually emailed somebody back that was probably like a 6 months long, like they had emailed me and they actually had a pretty intense sort of emotional story around it. And I just didn't respond because I think I unstarred it because I was going to respond, and then I just, I don't know what happened, but I was literally like searching, I think a name in my inbox and this person popped up and I was like, wow, that's an unresponded client email. And I read it and then I wrote back to her and I said, and it was also like a request for a sliding scale piece, like a half sleeve. So I wrote back and I said, I know this was 6 months ago. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing this email. I do want to offer you time if you are still interested. And I'm really sorry, this wasn't about you. I just like missed it. And so she is now, coming in once a month to get this work done. And she was like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Like I didn't actually reach out to anybody else because I just wanted you. And, so it's fine. Like sometimes you just, I mean,
Yeah.
if people are taking shit personally and are like, you're a bad person for not getting back to me, like they're not your clients, right?
No, right. And,
Yeah.
and then at that point, like the person who just like went off on you for like no reason or whatever, it's like, okay, there's clearly some other stuff going on. And I can tell sometimes, even if people do get in and they're having an appointment, and maybe even sometimes the way that they're communicating, I'm like, okay, like I can tell that you've had some stuff. Or sometimes, right, like I think we've all experienced this as tattooers, where someone will like, they might be short with me, or a little bit snippy, or like in this way where I'm like, dang, like I didn't realize that was kind of like your personality. And then it comes out like that they're like, well, I felt like I needed to be this way because I've had such shitty experiences, like getting tattooed, where the artist was like not wanting to move my stencil,
like they were defensive. Yeah,
they were super defensive, and and yes, that can be difficult. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, and sometimes I'm a little bit more willing. Hold on, I want to use a different phrase. I feel a bit more understanding about that when people are a little bit short in that way.
When you've had enough coffee versus when you haven't had enough coffee or sleep. This is the difference.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, just like sometimes I'm like, it's like if our industry is, if the scales have been tipped for a while of people having shitty experiences, I don't necessarily blame people for thinking we're all going to be that way. Is it fair? No. Are we all that way? No, absolutely not. But, I sometimes get, I don't think we have to do like some fucking song and dance the whole time. Right. But, at the same time, I'm like, yep, I understand if someone's like a little bit prickly at first and then they let their guard down a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's like different kind of a cultural differences too, again, like with our clientels, where I feel like a lot of people who come to me, not all, but a lot are like kind of privileged enough. And maybe a lot of them are actually, I have a lot of older kind of middle-aged white women who are lovely. It's a bit specific slice of population. I think a lot of those folks have been sitting with not having that enough for themselves, in their middle age through the pandemic. And so then they're like, I'm coming here to get a giant ass tattoo because this is what I want for me, but it's like they have disposable income. They probably both, they and their husbands work in maybe in tech, or one of them works in tech. Maybe their kids are kind of grown, so they have the space and the time. So there's like a specific slice of the population, but a lot of the people I tattoo have not had any shitty experiences because they haven't been tattooed before. So they're just coming in like, give me a gorgeous like floral back piece, It's like, okay, I'm happy to do that.
On it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to lie. There are some, experiences where people come in and they're just like, just here, just want some florals, whatever. And that might be all that I ever know and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then that might be all that I know. But there are times too where people will like post something that on Instagram and they'll share this long story with it. And I'm like, I had no fucking idea this whole time.
Yeah, right.
Like what this was about. And they don't need to. It's like, it's not my business, but they shared it and then they tagged me and I'm like, but that's the time that they needed to do that. Right.
That's like that's all right. Able to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to say that my clients who haven't had bad tattoo experience haven't had bad times. Like,
no. Yeah.
A lot of trauma too, but maybe they haven't tried to express through tattoos before. But I was also going to tell you, like a bunch of years ago, I was working on this young woman who, when she first came in, she didn't explain anything to me about her story at that point, but she said, I will be crying the whole time. I brought my rags, her, towel, the crying towel. And so I was working on her thigh and she was like, I'll be crying, like sobbing the entire time you tattoo me. Like, I'm fine. Don't stop. Don't question it. Just go for it. So she would come in and she'd be crying for the 2 hours or whatever. And I would tattoo her. And we did that for like a bunch of sessions, it was a big thigh piece. And then at some point she was down to chat. She wanted to talk and she told me like why she was crying and what the piece meant to her. And she was really working through, like trauma while getting this piece done. But I love that she was able to say, here's what I need. Here's what's going to be happening for me. Like, please do this and not do this, right? Like,
Shit, like
you
how's
know,
that's so self-aware. I'm like, damn, I wish I had that ability sometimes to like speak that way about myself and even know what the fuck I needed sometimes, you know?
totally. Yeah. And she was
Wow.
like, I mean, she's not a lot younger than me, but I don't know, she's in her probably early 30s now, and
Mm,
I'm in my late 30s.
mm,
But yeah, and then, we went on to do more work and other tattoos we've done. We would just chat the whole time and laugh and whatever.
yeah.
But that person in that situation helped me be like, yeah, sometimes people will be doing that and not tell me they're doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
I know that what they need in that moment is most likely for me to just keep going and like maybe acknowledge them, say, you doing okay? Do you need me to
Yeah,
stop? No,
for
okay,
sure.
keep going,
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
because if they don't have that language, right, to say like, oh, you can keep going or whatever. I know,
yeah.
how when we're trained like with things specifically like bloodborne pathogens and things, how we use universal precautions, right? Like it's just something that we do for ourselves, for our clients. It's like health and safety. And I don't know what the word would be. Do you know how like when if you think about like universal precautions or even like harm reduction or something like that, where it's just like you presume that everyone, including yourself, has every communicable thing or whatever, and so you just treat everyone accordingly and great, everyone's
Mhm,
great, right? It's not my
mhm,
business if someone comes in with hepatitis or
mhm.
HIV or anything. Like, of course, no one has to disclose that at all. We use all the universal precautions. I'm not at all worried as an artist, right? And anytime tattooers say shit like that to me, I'm like, you better the fuck not. You took this training just as much as I did. If you're worried about getting HIV from someone, I don't know how you're tattooing. Like that's whatever. But
Yeah.
sometimes I feel I don't know like how this translates, but like in terms of emotional health, because we don't know, right? And so in my mind, I try. I'm not saying I always do the best job. I got my fucking shitty days and my cranky days and whatever the fuck
Mhm.
else. And some people do push my buttons, whatever. But I try to just think like, even if someone is not sharing things, I'm still going to treat everyone like in this way of like respect and compassion and consent and whatever else, and like I just because someone's not sharing something with me does not mean that they haven't been through something. I mean, I'm of the belief that like probably everyone is a trauma survivor, whether or not we want to call ourselves that. Some people do
Yeah.
not like that terminology. I understand that also, but I'm also not here to compare like big T, little T, right? Like I had
Yeah,
someone once
yeah.
say that they kept not getting in when I did. Sometimes when I would be like, okay, my books are open. I fucking hate that shit, but I didn't know how else to manage like 200 emails that came in. I'm like, oh my God, and she left feedback and was like, or no, you know what? She told another client of mine. She said the client said, so my friend had been trying to get in with you and like didn't get a response or like didn't get in on this round, and it was like a few times. And they said, oh, she explained like a bit of her like situation or whatever, and she said, I think it wasn't probably enough trauma for her to like take on. And I was like, oh no, I don't like I try to be like I was like, I guess I haven't been clear about that. I'm like, you don't have to share anything. Sometimes it's literally like I just got too many requests. I don't really know what to do. Or like I
I could see that being a pitfall for the way that you like word your things because I
oh yeah.
because I make people go through a little, it's not an application process. It's just that I
Yeah.
want to know a little bit about you before I
Uh-huh.
get into that space with you. But
Yeah.
I've had people be like, oh, I hope I passed your test. I hope I'm like, my idea is cool enough, or I hope you like
Oh.
what I have to say. And it's like, I literally just want to see that you can put sentences together and tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me a
Mm,
little bit about your idea. And that like,
mm,
I just want to know a little bit about you, but people see it
mm,
that way, right? When you have any
mm,
barrier to entry at
mm.
all,
Yep.
any little bump to entry, people are like, well, I hope I can jump over this bump well
Yeah.
enough.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and sometimes people are going to read into things that are not there, and I have to remember, like, I can't necessarily do anything about that. But there are
Yeah.
times when I also have to look and say, like, okay, if I have not made something clear and it might seem a certain way, then that's on me, and I can maybe like reflect and figure out like different wording for things. I'll say like what my hourly rate is. And if people are booking, I'll say like, oh, grab a 1 to 2 hour spot. And in my mind, I'm like, well, they know I'm 150 an hour and it's 1 to 2 hours. They know it's going to be somewhere in that range. But
Mhm.
I, I am, I'm really uncomfortable talking about money. That's my own bullshit that I have to get over because that's not fair to clients, right? So even though there's like some window there, it would be nice because the difference between $150 and $300 is for
For
some
some
people maybe
people,
nothing, and for
yeah.
some people it is a lot. And so I sometimes I need to be better at like even understanding like how much fucking time it is going to take me to do something. That took years to figure out too.
Can I give you unsolicited money advice?
Please, please.
So what I started doing, which has really been working for me, is when I ask for information about what the people want, I ask what their budget is.
Mm,
And people will sometimes say, I can't spend more than $400. Or sometimes they'll
mm,
say, I don't have restrictions, whatever it takes. Or
mm,
if you can spread it out over the course of 6 months, I can do this much, right? So
mm,
then I have really good parameters to know if, first of all, if their idea, what they want is realistic,
mm-hmm.
with
Right.
also honoring my own boundaries as far as financials go.
Yeah.
And if that's not, I can tell them that, and if maybe, and I can also say, okay, so what we could do for this could be like this big and it could be
Mm-hmm.
this many hours, but actually,
Yeah.
it looks like you can't afford that. So do you want to um, do something a little bit more minimalistic, or maybe do you want to take advantage of my sliding scale? That
Mm-hmm.
kind of depends on what they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
that
good.
just like asking them what their budget is has been so helpful.
That is something that I need to consider, and I think it probably makes a difference in how you word that, because I've seen it when people have asked for a budget where it has come across it almost seems very like classist in a way. But I think it was the wording
Mhm.
that I had seen where I was like, oh, the way it was phrased, I was like, oh, that's so off putting.
I'm
Like
so curious what the wording was for that.
I'll see if I can look through Instagram. It's an artist in town here, and so I'll look at their stuff and I'll
Okay.
like send it
Okay.
to you. Or whatever. I'll just
Yeah.
it to me felt a little like oof, but like I can see where also they would just be very like that's also can just be a clear and healthy boundary around like, hey, this is also for them, like to be able to express, what the need is. Yeah, it's
Well, because, also sometimes, like, I don't know, like I have a new client who's getting a sleeve.
mm,
And when we discussed, and he said, he's like, whatever it takes. But then
mm,
when we actually talked about it,
mm,
it sounded like he was not having a lot of cushion, like he lives paycheck. And
ah,
so I said, okay, so if we do this once every 6 weeks, like how much could you spend per
mm-hmm,
session?
yeah,
And he said, I can spend this much per session. And then
mm-hmm,
I was like, okay, that's fine. It's less than I would have usually taken per session,
mm-hmm,
but because we had this conversation,
mm-hmm,
I was like, okay, yeah, we can do that, and I'll
yeah,
give you this much time. And
mm-hmm,
so it's kind of like a little bit of a sliding scale. We didn't even discuss that piece though, because
yeah,
he kind of came in going like whatever it takes, and then
yeah,
was like, well, when I was really pressed him for the numbers, but it
yeah,
allowed, I think, both of us to
yeah,
stay in integrity, right? It allowed me to like
yeah,
not feel like I have to offer sliding scale to somebody who might not want, like, not
yes,
everybody wants to
no,
be recipient of that, right?
yep,
And also
yep,
he is like an able-bodied, like a straight man who's like has a
mm-hmm,
job, right? So
mm-hmm,
I try to offer that to people who have
yeah,
just like more things happening, for them
sure,
that would prevent them from making money.
yep,
Anyway, but it just was like having, yeah, money. I think having this conversation with money is so important in a way that feels like we all get to keep our integrity,
yes, and I think
including us too. We
including
also,
us, yes. Oh,
yeah,
I think you're totally right, and I really it amazes me to see people who can hold those healthy boundaries. Again, like one of my like business partners or coworkers, man, I just feel like she's so. I'm not saying that she doesn't internally like struggle with that. She's been tattooing, I don't remember, 11, 12 years or something like that. And I feel like should be charging a lot more than she does because she really is like honed in on her work. She tattooed the side of my head and took her like a fucking hour and a half. Like
nice.
her shit is so like tight. She's got her shit down and whatever. And I'm like, it took you so many years to get to that point. So like, whatever. But so I'm not saying she doesn't internally like struggle with this, but I feel like it's like she's more like here, clear about this. And I think even if you have to, I would rather, I think, me continue to try to do that and kind of force myself into that because, yeah, I that goes back to that self worth and imposter syndrome fuckery or whatever. And I'm like, sometimes I just have to continue to do that. sometimes I underestimate how much time it's going to take. I do that less and less now after so many years. I feel like I have gotten better at communicating like pricing and things. And it sounds like you too, like, right. You make, in terms of the sliding scale, like you make that available. And I think it's really beautiful that you can do that, that you're able to do that. And I'm sure you also have boundaries around that when you know, like, I can't do it this month, right? Like if there was a big repair or who knows, some kind of emergency and you can't do it, it's just, that's also a boundary, you know? And I have never had anyone that was like, oh, fuck, are you fucking serious? Like, not at all. People are like,
of course,
awesome, take your time.
Grateful. Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice. Even when I say like no appointments for a few weeks, I need some rest. And people are like, oh, like, I hope you have a good time. Like, I know you like podcasts. Here's a couple of, you know, if you want to listen to them or something. And yeah, so that is.
Do you feel like your Instagram is a community? Like, I feel like that's it for me. Like I feel so grateful that my little circle of folks who watch my stories, who respond to what I say, you know, that's like, it feels like it's a loving community.
Oh, I think that's the aspect of viewers. Instagram that I do really love.
Yeah.
Where I found, I have I had a friend that lived in Oakland, and she died this year, and it was just really difficult. She owned a cupcake shop or a cake shop out there.
Oh, you knew Jen Angel?
You knew Jen?
I didn't, but a lot of people I know knew her.
Aww.
So it definitely made all my social, like everywhere, you know, looked was the story. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I mean,
like an amazing human.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, and Jen was, you know, from Ohio. We worked together at this place called Lumberjack. It was like a fucking music distribution company, like back in the day, whatever. And Jen was fucking awesome. And so I had been looking around to like come out and visit, and heard about Diving Swallow and Wolf. And I was like, okay. So like checking out the page, I was thinking like, who's going to want me to guest spot, whatever. And I can't remember how, but I don't know, Jen or somebody was just like, just approach them. What the worst they can say is no. And I'm like, Wolf has been so fucking amazing. Like not that we chat a lot, but you know, even when I was getting ready to open the business, I'm like, hey, can I ask you a couple of questions if that's okay, if you have time for this? And sometimes it's literally just like, ooh, I love that Cocteau Twins song that you posted. Like, that is so good. I love your fucking cute dog and that cover up that you did, and you know, whatever else, seeing your stuff. Like, yes, those types
Wolf is like the best person. I love
him. I cannot wait to like meet them in person. Like, I feel like I'm just going to be like, aha. And we'll both be like, I picture us both being like extremely awkward with each other at first, and then being like, okay, after time, you know.
So are you coming out here? Are you going to?
Yeah, I don't have a date. You know, I did have a date set that I had to back out on. There was some personal stuff that, was happening with my kids. And so I was like, yeah, I can't come out. And they were very gracious. Like, yep, sure. Just let us know. And so I just need to reach back out. And I think it might be a little bit easier now. My older kiddo just turned 18, graduated from high school a couple days ago. And my younger kid is 10, but, you know, depending on like care or whatever, if I could, I just don't want to go out for any shorter, like come out all that way to spend like 2 days. You know what I mean? Yeah, like even if I'm tattooing for 1 or 2 days, I still want to be able to spend time and come out and meet folks. So like in that respect, with tattooers or other artists, or even the clients who are just like, can be really fun to connect with, and don't like, not to sound like a dick, but you know, like, it's not like they message every day. Like that's too, I don't even talk to my Jess that you met, like, you know, like that you saw earlier. Jess is like one of my very best friends. Like, it's not like we don't even talk every day. Right. Like, so sometimes it's difficult if someone's constantly sending like, especially when they're like, did you see this tattoo? Look at this tattoo. I'm like, I'm a tattooer. I see tattoos. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But it is really nice. I mean, it's nice to be able to like, I don't know, sometimes shoot the shit, or sometimes like you commiserate. Sometimes you're just like, I had this most beautiful thing. And, you know, of course there's stuff that I know we don't have HIPAA laws, but there's plenty of stuff that it's like, you don't share all the ins and outs and the personal things, but you can just be like, I had a really fucking tough day. You know, like whatever. And I think that is so, that's the aspect that's really beautiful. And that's the stuff that like reminds me that it's not all just like, you know, endless drawing or like comparing bullshit and whatever.
It's more endless peopling than endless drawing for me. But I, you know,
the
thing, it's like, I'm so grateful. I love it so much. I can't imagine doing anything else. And then there's weeks where I'm just like 3 days in a row, I've had to people extra hard,
Yes.
you know?
Oh yeah. For you, did that feel, I don't know if you consider yourself even knowing that it's like a spectrum of like introvert and extrovert, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's not right. It's not, it feels funny to be like, are you this or are you that?
yeah,
Um, I'm
right?
more of
Like,
it's funny because I would say I'm more of an introvert in
mm-hmm.
general, but like
Yeah.
my partner is, if you go to a party with her, she'll be talking to everybody and leave you behind because she just like talks to everybody, has a
Yeah.
big community. But
Yeah.
then when it's just the two of us alone at night, she might be like, I'm really like tired because she sees clients too. She's like a
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
informed pelvic floor PT, and
Oh shit.
she
That's
does a lot of shit.
amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
She's totally amazing. She's an
Oh,
amazing, super talented human, so
wow.
intuitive and like just so
Oh.
brilliant. But yeah, she'll be like, I'm kind of talked out. Like, do we need to keep having a conversation? Can we just like lay here? You know?
Also, what great communication. I don't understand love. I believe in it. I'm here for it. I know that at some point it will happen again in a way that works fucking well for me, but it is always like whoop, with me, like just fucking missed. So when having like good, like moments of communication like that, again, for someone to identify like what their need is, first of all, that's a big thing in and of itself. Like, oh, you've identified what your need is. Way the fuck to go. I'm usually just like running into a wall 10 times, like with my own personal stuff. And then I'm like, oh, look, my forehead is bleeding. You know, like, I'm better about it and my boundaries and things at work than I am sometimes like around, you know, other personal stuff. But I think that's beautiful when someone can
Well, it's
say
like
like, hey,
practice. I think, you have
yeah,
clients every day and you don't have relationships all the time or every day in the same way.
yeah,
So I feel like
yeah.
can be better at work than, and yeah, for sure. Like my partner, this is the first like healthy relationship I've ever had,
Mm,
and I'm 39. So
yeah.
I hear that it's not like the easiest thing to find. And
Oh,
it's also not free of its own complications and,
oh, for sure. Oh, I don't
faults.
think that
Yeah.
anything is without that. Right. And I'm not, I don't, like toxic positivity that's
Yeah.
some shit. Right. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, everything's going to have its shit to a certain extent. But someone told me like love is always going to be a thing that you like figure out and grow and learn, and there'll be difficult times, but it should not always feel like an uphill battle, like endlessly. And I think uh, if I try to keep that in mind, then it helps me to frame out like whether or not I want to continue, like whatever, partnering
And
with someone or whatever.
it's also something I think for twos is a little bit more difficult because I think we're attracted to people who can be really manipulative because we want to help, you
Wah,
know?
wah, wah.
And so, when I think about like my relationship with my partner, it's like when I fell in love with her, I literally just got lucky that she's the most amazing human because I wouldn't have recognized it if she wasn't. If she was
Mm,
the same thing I'd been in for years
mm-hmm.
over and over again, like if she was the same type of person, I would have
Yeah,
still been like, but I'm in love with you. It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
So I just really got lucky that she's amazing,
Yes. Oh, it sounds like it. And her with you, right? Like that's also a beautiful thing. Like she also found you. Come
Yes.
on, come on.
Well,
Take the
I know.
fucking compliment,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you. I know she gets a lot, a lot of her needs met with me, but, and also like, again, like we're just people,
Yeah.
right? So
Right. Yep.
I do my best. I can be not great.
Oh, listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So I had a question for you, like
Mm-hmm.
as a person who carries so much emotional weight in your
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
what types of self-care do you consider like
Mm-hmm.
optional that are nice to have, and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
self-care
Yeah.
do you have to have?
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding that everyone is different, right? They're like care practices and also what is actually doable for folks, like either financially or whatever, right? For me, it is very preferred that when I have that space in between, like the Tuesdays, Thursdays, if I usually have those days off, that's really helpful to me. It really gives me almost like a good reset. And then physically, like it gives me a reset as well. And I have to remember like the stretch and all the shit that I do not like to do. And financially, no, I mean, I don't I don't have a savings account, but I still do well enough. Like I still keep a roof over our heads and like the shop is doing well. You know what I mean? Like it's like those things are okay. Right. So that kind of time frame, again, knowing that that's not an option for some folks, right? Like sometimes we work for shops that are like, you're here like 12 to 9, that fuckery, whatever. So if I can have like a day in between, then that I have found is really beneficial to me. On the physical side of things, right now I trade with a massage therapist. So I do tattoos for her, and so far we have just like traded equally, where at minimum I need to get work done like every 3 weeks, and sometimes it's more than that. And she's been really good at like kind of honing in on the areas, right? And then I just have to listen and actually follow through with some of like the stretching things. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about chiropractors in general, but Medicaid covers this chiropractor in town. Well, what it covers chiropractors, but there are just so few that take Medicaid, at least here. And so I worked with them and actually got, x-rays, and the x-rays were covered, and they showed me like different spots of arthritis and whatever. And so I sort of reluctantly did that, and probably because I don't know, could I have afforded it otherwise? And now I go, I think it's like every 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. And I have felt a lot better. Like but that's like physical side of things. I have this friend, she comes from like a familial line of healers. And one time she was tattooing me. Well, I was tattooing her, and she said, oh, afterwards she was like, oh, that felt really heavy. Like you felt really heavy this time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you for letting me know. Like I didn't realize this being really heavy handed. And she's like, oh, no, you weren't. She's like, you got too much in you. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, I can pick up on that like from a mile away. And I think it'd be good for you to like be more in tune with that. So one thing that she talked to me about, and I think I was reluctant to do this, I think also primarily because I think I'm better at like, I don't know, trying to learn about caring for other people and my children or whatever than I am following through with shit for myself. So she said, if you can do a simple practice, she did talk about like, well, if you have a plant in your booth, and I explained like, well, I can't like have anything like really close by. Oh, okay. She's like, what about candles? I'm like, well, yes, but I'm prone to forget that they're burning or whatever. So she's like, okay, one thing that I would suggest is, she's like, if you can have like a very simple process, she's like, you wash your hands all the time, right? When you're working. So she's like, before a client comes in, if you can really try to put yourself in this position of saying like, okay, I'm going to do my best. She's like, say it out loud, just think it in your head. Like you can also, do it whatever informal way that you need to. But she's like, just, try to say, okay, I'm going to do my best to be present for this client and hold my own boundaries and whatever. She's like, so wash your hands and kind of like make that be like your statement or your goal. And she did say it would be helpful to like have a candle burning or something. That's part of her practice. But she said, I'm a person like for her practice where people come in and she's like, I have everything stop here. Like if their, whatever she calls energy or their language or whatever, she's like, I have to have it stop right before it hits my body, basically. And she's like, I can still be really present with people. And she's like, but that's how I like keep things, right? And she's like, but I don't see that in you. And I'm like, I think it's important for me to like bring it in. And she's like, right, I think you have a hard time like letting it up and out. So she was like, I don't know like how you'll take this, but I need you to listen. She's like, at the end of the session, when they're gone, she's like, and you're going to wash your hands again at the end. She's like, you literally like have to make this a practice to like say, like, I'm glad that they were here, or, even in moments when it's been exhausting or whatever, just like, I hope that they have like found something that they have needed. I hope that I have been like a part of this process. And now it is theirs to hold. And she's like, everything has to wash down, like let it wash out of it, like into the water. Mm-hmm. She's like, and then it's just the job of whatever to just kind of let that cruise on. And she's like, it's going to sound simple, but I try to like continuously get into that practice for myself. That same friend offers like as a tattoo trade also for me to come in, and she's like, I'll just do, I don't know, like again, her familial line of like body work or energy work that they do. She's like, you just have to trust that this is something that I can do for you, that I can help. And it is helpful. I am always reluctant to schedule stuff, and it's not because of the process. It's literally just my sometimes lack of care in that way. Sometimes it is just like taking some extra days off. If I can do something like gardening or whatever, I would like, maybe it would be good if I like got back into writing or something like that. But it's like, I don't know if you ever find like using your fucking tattooing and drawing hand. I'm like, I don't.
Like, well, I don't do anything else.
No,
I know, it's true.
No,
I have a lot of other physical, like arty things I do. Like I'm a member at a pottery studio, and
oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and I do jewelry, so that takes a lot of like sewing, like things with your hands.
Oh,
and
yeah.
do some sawing, and there's sewing also.
Yeah.
And sometimes gardening and stuff. So yeah, I hear that. And then like the kind of working out I do is like holding the bar. Sometimes I'm just like, my hands just tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you. But sometimes it's like doing a different motion, you know, can be so good than just the constant.
Yeah, that same repeated.
And,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the brief time when I had to see an occupational therapist when I fucked up my hand, you know, like they showed, it was interesting to just see like what looked to me like simple movements, but they're like, that really helps to like stretch things out. And then like, yep, like you said, like just have different movements and motions with your hand instead of like the same drawing utensils or tattooing equipment that we have. I don't know. In terms of self-care otherwise, I mean, I don't drink enough water, you know, so like sometimes simple shit like that I think is really important. But for me, I think it's a lot of just go for a walk and have a lot of downtime. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think that I get more introverted the older that I get. And I think it's really important for me. And I recharge that way, you know, like I think it helps me to be more present with people, or I hope.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's how it feels to me, that I can be more present with people if I do take that time. So like, even though like financially, you know, yeah, I gotta like, I got kids and myself and whatever to take care of, but, like I'm doing totally fine, and I could be doing better if I worked more, but I was like, I did that, and that just wasn't a good balance for me. And so it just is what it is, right? Like, I'm not going to like leave them when I die with any kind of like mountain of money, but like, you know, they can have this old crappy house, and like,
they probably rather have the time with you than more money.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Right.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the case. So, you know, as time goes on, you know, like 7 years, significant amount of time, and the style that you do, like, I know you said that you don't always feel like you're a master of that, but, you know, say, you know what you're doing. I'm pretty sure you know what you're doing. What is progress to you? Like, what are the marks of progress in furthering your practice to you? And also, yeah, how are you planning on growing as, you know, as the practitioner that you are in all the ways?
I think it is nice to be like, if I do guest spot places or even get tattooed places, it's really nice, like from a tattooer standpoint, then to observe in ways where, even if it's something like as simple as like a setup where I'm like, oh, that's a great way to actually like wrap your bottles, or, you know, I mean, some of it is like more, you know, like eco-friendly stuff, and like understanding like the impact of like we generate a lot of waste, and some of it, like, yes, like we have to because of bloodborne pathogens and we have to be safe, but there are ways where we can not be as shitty as we are in terms of like, you know, the amount of waste or the kind of waste or whatever.
The plastic. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so then, you know, figuring out like, how is the budget to buy some of that stuff, which is not always like, you know, like the gloves and things that are, you know, $20 a box or whatever. But to observe folks and to be able to say like, oh, like that's such an interesting way to like, you know, just when I was in Ann Arbor, I got to the owner of the shop. I went to Three Bird. I've been there once before. The owner of the shop was out of the country, and so I was tattooing out of their booth. But it's like a wide open space, and I've been able to work with a couple of the artists that are there before, and I just love them. Like not only their work, but just like who they are as people. It's just like a really good connection, and to be able to watch and say like, oh, okay, interesting. Like I liked it the way that this person like they started using like a rotary, like a pen or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's the way that they wrap their machine, or oh, they hold it in such a way, or this is like I noticed like a good healthy boundary that someone had with their client that I was like, that was beautifully said. Some of it is just I don't know, like more practice with like like not only tattooing, but just like drawing and drawing style and not feeling like I need to keep myself in a certain bubble of style that I've always been comfortable with or whatever. And I think some of it is just also like, I feel happy about understanding troubleshooting more and like trusting myself when a machine doesn't work or it keeps shutting off or, and I'm like, okay, well, I have this backup and then I can troubleshoot this later. Or like, that's okay, because those first few years was just like, oh my God, like crying and trying to figure things out and being like, I don't want to fuck people up. And now I'm like, no, I'm not going to fuck people up. And even if someone comes back and they're like, a few of these lines fell out or something, like, okay, I can touch that up. Like that's, yes. And like being more, easy on myself. And that feels really good. But just again, like I feel like observing other artists, especially in real time, like online or something, it's one thing if you can see an artist like actually at work, but that feels a little bit more like, oh, I'm comparing my work to theirs or something. But when you see someone in person, like either guest spotting or being tattooed by someone, it's so nice because you can just like pick up on all these things because you learn certain ways or you develop your own habits, whatever. So I feel like that, it's a slow process, but I feel like, I feel much more like, like confident, I guess, in the practice in that way.
Well, that's for sure. Marks of progress, feeling more comfortable with your own process, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there something like a piece, like another project or like a piece of something you're developing or guest spots that you're looking forward to? Like, is there something happening soon?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be in Traverse City this summer. There's a hand poke artist up there, Carolyn. She goes by Pokey Robinson, up north there. And so she invited me to come up. So I'm going to go up there, I think in August. And then I'm really looking forward to coming out to Diving Swallow when I can get that together. I would love to meet you in person if you're, up for it.
I would love to meet you for sure.
Yeah, so that would be so great. That would be awesome. And then, there's just some I think client-based, there's stuff that I like, already have drawn up for folks who had like some pretty specific, like meaningful things for themselves. But I've just been wanting to do like some drawing of, I've been like just doing some research about basically like, Jews who like fucked people up. Like especially after like the Holocaust and things like that. So I've been trying to draw this portrait of actually a person who wasn't even a Jew, this nun who was a Dominican nun and was very like peace, like nonviolence and whatever, but found that one of the best ways when asking like, how can I help? This group of Jews were like, we need weapons, like whatever. And so this nun was like smuggling fucking hand grenades and like different firearms and things. And I just want to do a series of portraits of like nuns with like, hand grenade and whatever to be like, even in your moments of like peace and love and whatever, like understanding that like, if you want to be of help, you sometimes you might need to stretch yourself, a little bit, whatever. So I don't know. We'll see.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
If I draw that. But,
I did a tattoo once for one of my regular clients, and I don't remember the name of the person, so I'm not going to say it, but I'll give the context. So I did it as like a line worky, kind of a saintly portrait of him. Yeah. He was a gay man in the Second World War in Germany who had bombed a building that had held paperwork for Jews and queers in the area. And his last quote was, "We're not cowards. Like gay men are not cowards." And he was, of course, executed for that action.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
he had, saved many lives. And
Yeah.
so my client who got this portrait, he's a designer, so he designed the piece himself, and I just executed it. But I was like, this is so cool. But yeah, it's like in that same vein of what you're talking about.
That I have like huge goosebumps about stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I tell me that, your grandmother or your late lover or whatever, like had this beautiful flower that was meaningful to them. Yes, absolutely. I will still feel like great about that. But those moments like that, I'm like, oh my God, like,
Mhm.
and to carry on those beautiful moments. There's this like phrase, I can't to say it in Yiddish. I can't, I don't know. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's like, we will outlive them is the phrase. Do you know that story? About, well, anyways, like they were just like a bunch of Jews were like rounded up, and they were like, oh, sing for us, do all this stuff, like do these things. And you're literally just going to be like
entertain us.
And it was still just like an open line of fire. Like you are going to be like literally executed right now. And one of the folks just like started singing in Yiddish this song, and like it translates in English to like, we will outlive them. And they were, whatever. So, but I was just like, I love that kind of like, sentiment, and however that can carry on. I don't have, like I have my own relationship, I guess, with Judaism and things like that. Right. And I had, my own family who were like, forced to convert in their own ways. And even though like I'm a secular Jew for sure, I still think that it's important for me to like carry on traditions, especially if they were not allowed to. And so if that means the way that I translate that, who knows what they would think, right? They might be like, this bitch, like, really? That's what you took from all of this? But I love these sort of like, these moments of like any kind of victory or any kind of like semblance of like, yeah, we're still fucking here, even if some of us are not, or just maybe in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that, and just figuring out, I just finished like a death worker certificate, and I'm like, how am I integrating that in life, whatever. So, another topics, but
Yeah, I feel like it's another topic because I was like some years ago, I was like, what if I didn't do tattooing? What kind of thing would I want to do? And I like was listening to a podcast about death work, and I was like, I want to do that. So then I was kind of like obsessed with that. And I follow Going with Grace, the person I from, and other death workers. And I have a client who took the in-person thing like some years ago before the pandemic, and with Going with Grace. So anyway, I'm also like, this is an interesting path. Like, this is a really interesting and relevant. So these are all the reasons why when I saw your profile, I was like, this person is so cool. Like,
thanks.
I want to be friends with them.
Oh, same. Thanks. Jeez. I'm always surprised. I'm like, really? Like, wow. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what
you're two. That's because you're two.
Helpers. Yeah, I don't know, but I think like that is a goal. Not to, I mean, even if I don't become a death doula or anything, I don't have the capacity. I finished those classes. I'm like, I don't have the capacity. That's like a strong boundary for me right now. But like learning more about like grief and grieving processes, and in the work that I do now, whatever, like that's the stuff. And so, yeah, sometimes that also translates into like a fucking picture of a hand grenade, and
I mean,
whatever ways.
I would so love to get one of those tattoos, that you're going to draw these hands, hand grenades.
Thanks.
So, the last question I ask everybody is, what are some small things that are making you happy lately?
Well, I'm very happy that the weather has turned a lot nicer. My seedlings, some of them survived. So I've been planting those in the ground. And I've been trying to be a little bit more intentional about when I mentioned one of my favorite people, my auntie, she died a couple of years ago, and already somehow like a year and a half ago. And so I've been trying to be a little bit more intentional with like being present with my feelings about that. And even though that's difficult, it somehow brings me joy and a lot more peace around the process of like not having like a physical presence so much of someone. So that is super fun. On a completely different note, when I went to guest spot, one of my friends that I met through the tattoo shop works there, Lorena, and I got two. This was joyful. I got two monster truck remote control cars, and we raced them at the shop, like outside of the shop. And I mean, I was like almost to the point of peeing my pants. I did, I am a certain age, but like it was so fun. It was like, no, it was just fucking ridiculous, right? Like completely ridiculous. I also happen to be fucking someone right now who's really into professional wrestling or just wrestling in general. And I was like, that's so fun and amazing. It like also brings me a lot of joy to like watch documentaries.
You've been watching professional wrestlers
while we're fucking. No, we're not. We're not. We don't. No. But although now that we mentioned that, but like that just reminded me, like those are also moments of joy that have nothing to do with anything. The last thing is I started taking cello lessons, and I'm really bad at it, but it's so fun.
Nice.
And
I love that.
the person even like loaned me or like a really nice cello to use, and it just feels really beautiful. And I think part of it is it's for nobody. It's for no reason at all.
Yeah.
I'm not playing. And initially I was like, oh, I can learn to play for people when they're dying. And then I was like, motherfucker, you could also just do a thing that ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
Right.
You could just do the fucking thing. So that has been like, those have been bringing me like such joy. I also really love to eat. So I also like eat for joy, but
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really funny too. Cause just yesterday I have a client who is a violin musician and also is like, kind of in a hard spot, I think financially and just like in general. And I was like, why don't we do a trade and you can teach me violin and I will finish your sleeve.
You better not.
So we're doing so it just
you like better not. Look at all this. We are somehow siblings. I don't know.
I know. Hilarious.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh,
yeah,
I love it.
Excited.
I love hearing that. And I love
brilliant. This person is just so brilliant. I'm excited to do like a thing that feels like it's like a full circle of like
Oh, that's so beautiful. I also love that you asked that question as like a closer, right? Because sometimes we can get so into all of our day-to-day whatever that like I do sometimes really forget joy. And as I get older and my kid just graduated and I'm like, babe, I hope that you can like that the future can be as much of what you decide and that it can be so much more about joy. Like, thankfully people don't have to work 40 hours a week anymore. I that's a very privileged statement to make. So I understand that like, no, some people do. And even more than that, right?
It depends. Yeah.
It depends that there are like, there can be some other ways like around that. Mm-hmm. And hopefully there's, more joy in that. Cause if I'm also not modeling that, like, then I'm just going to continuously fall apart. My kids are going to be like, okay, cool. So yeah. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh my gosh.
It was so fun to talk to you and to just have so much in common. And I'm so looking forward to you coming to Oakland.
Me too.
And lovely audience, you can find Sarah at Sun Medicine Inc. on Instagram. Please follow this lovely human and give them some love. And we'll do like an update in like a year or something, see what else we're up to.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Micah. Thanks for all that you do also.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Like it was so random when you're like, I love your podcast. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but you're listening, which is like awesome because I just assume it's like people I have met who listen. Like I don't assume that anybody who doesn't actually know me or already listens,
No, so we do.
Cool.
No, we definitely do. It's awesome. Yeah, awesome. I love it. I love it. I love also that it feels like it's just so conversational and not even when I asked like, oh, should I prepare for something? And you were like, no, it's a conversation. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that feels so much nicer. And I'm just like over here, like about to have diarrhea or something, so worried about it. And I was like, oh no, this is chill. Okay.